Hi, this is TC Doyle, and you're listening to another edition of Lessons from the Edge here at Impartner. Today with me, it's Mike Leonetti. He is the president and CEO of the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals. Mike, good to see you.
Good to see you, TC. Thanks for having me.
We want to talk a couple of things today. Throwaway partners, very interesting concept and worth discussing. But before we get to that, some folks may not know ASAP, or they might think they know it. In case in point, you've been affiliated with the organization. Some people might even confuse you as a founder, but give us its history, its mission, and purpose today.
No problem. Okay, ASAP's been around since 1999. ASAP's purpose was to help people become successful at their strategic business partnerships. I got involved with ASAP when I went from a sales function to heading up a partner function for a major international pharma company. I literally had to find out how to do this job, and ASAP really helped me with that. So that was around 2001, 2002, was a member of the board of directors, was the chairman of the organization for a number of years. And then finally, when I left pharma after an illustrious 30 years, I came on board with ASAP in 2013-14 year.
And what are you guys most known for today? What's the purpose of the organization? And then I'm going to ask you about how it's risen in terms of importance as partnering and alliances, but talk about its core mission today.
Core mission remains the same, TC. We are there because strategic partnerships are difficult. People need to understand that there's a community, a series of best practices, learnings, and professional development that they can engage with and become successful at their strategic partnerships.
You mentioned that they're difficult. They're also increasing in importance today. And living through the pandemic, and as we record this, there are global product shortages. The supply chains are still disrupted almost a year and a half plus after the onset of the pandemic. And as we both know, organizations, if they did not have their alliance partners, their business partners and channel partners, they would be out of luck today. So talk about the rising importance within organizations, be it pharma, be it big pharma, high tech, fintech, other organizations as well.
TC, that was so well said. But the bottom line is, I have seen so many studies that pretty much have said CEOs all are looking for innovation. The easiest, I should say, in their mind, the easiest source of that innovation is to find strategic partnerships. They have increased in size and number over the last 5 years at an enormous rate. For many years back in the early 2000s, we talked about this as a strategy, and it wasn't as well accepted. Today, there is no major organization out there without strategic partners, and their importance is just duplicating in terms of numbers and sheer impact on their organization.
And here's the conundrum I think a lot of folks have today. When they think about this and they study it, they look at this, it's alliances and go-to-market strategies that revolve around partners have become increasingly important, especially in times like we're living through now. And yet the best practices around it, the approaches to it, they're still rudimentary and base level in some areas. So how does the association work to try to close that gap between what the C-suite knows and understands it needs to do and understand about partnering and alliances, and yet what we still find today is commonplace in many organizations?
Yeah, TC, good point. The bottom line is this takes a profession, and it takes a practitioner driving that profession. So there's education that goes with this, and there are best practices. And when you have a community supporting best practices and that, shall we say, those accomplishments, where today, if you look at research, you find that 60% of strategic partnerships fail when best practices are not implemented. ASAP has continued to do that research and found that 80% of those partnerships can be successful when they're involved with ASAP. And what does that mean? They're a part of the community, they're a part of the mindset, they're a part of the education, they're a part of the best practices.
People I know that are affiliated with the organization, they love the peer sharing, the independent environment where they can get best practices. But let's talk about best practices in the subject today, throwaway partners. We've seen good best practices and we've seen some really crappy ones. And one of those is this concept that you can churn through partners and it doesn't really matter, just sign up anybody. Talk about this, something that you've seen and marveled about, and why it is really not a best practice.
Yeah, TC, good. Good point again. I think when we see the development of the ecosystem today, and ecosystem partners has taken on this whole new connotation that, maybe we don't have to pay as much attention because we could fill the ecosystem with hundreds of partners and simply either throw away or trash those partners if they don't work out. I refer to that as trashable partnerships or throwaway partnerships. And what I mean by that is you can always put somebody in and then take somebody out. But does that make sense? How much time and effort do you put into finding the right partners? How much time and effort do you put into developing the relationship? How long is it before that return on investment begins to come? And then the question is do you really want to start that over again?
That puts a lot of emphasis on the negatives on the organization that is putting forth those programs and trying to sign those up. But it also does extensive damage throughout the partnering community itself. You become known as having a lot of friction, having a lot of churn, not friendly and not good to do business with. And you can burn bridges fast and furious throughout the industry. Is that correct?
That's for sure. TC, we all know of those companies, and we at ASAP do our darn best to reach out and help those organizations understand what their image is out there. And in many cases, they're totally unaware of it. And I think once they find out that this is the image that they're portraying, they want to quickly correct it. And ASAP usually can help them.
Impartner, we're a high-tech company. We make a partner automation platform, but your organization speaks to partners of all ilk from various industries. When you take a look at the different industries your organization represents, is there one industry or a group or a cluster of industries that are getting it right, maybe better than high-tech? Maybe high-tech is the top tier, but talk about the differences you see and innovation you mentioned earlier. Who's really innovating in partners today?
Yeah, I think what's happened is if you look at tech being the leader for a long, long time. In fact, I learned about partnerships from the folks at Cisco way back in the year 2000. I was amazed at the way they managed and ran their partnerships. But if you look at the world today, I think it's gotten across the board very well. Like in 2005, pharma wasn't very good at partnerships. But the thing called the patent cliff way back then said, oh my goodness, you guys had better figure out how to partner real quick. And pharma got very, very good at it. It took a number of years. So I think when you look at tech and life sciences, and as the ecosystem of both of those groups is getting larger and larger, we're bringing in a lot of new people. What I'm particularly interested in right now is the fintech community. Financial services has taken a very keen approach to partnering and is coming into this for the last 5 or 6 years and looking to learn and looking to do well.
Interesting. Let me ask you something. And I study and I look at this and I do wonder. You mentioned innovation. And heretofore, and certainly in the high-tech space, we looked at the vendors and the service providers, the companies that were creating partner ecosystems to be the innovators. But today, I see as much, if not more, innovation among the individual partner companies themselves, those organizations down in the, shall we say, closest to where the action is in the ecosystems, new business models, new partner and customer experiences that they're extending and providing. So talk about how maybe the role as a vendor is changing as their downstream partners are really coming to fore with a lot of innovation of their own.
Well, I think what's happening is you have a total reinvention of the channel, as we say. And reinvention may be too strong a word, but recreation of the channel as as far away from old reseller model as you can get to the model of real partnerships. So with everything moving to the cloud and software as a service, I think the days of pouring money into a reseller and throwing money at them and just saying, let's give it a go, and not looking at a true partnership where there's a give and a get, those days are probably over at this point in time. And if you do survive as a reseller, you probably are looking to reinvent yourself as we speak today.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to ask you is not a plug for automation, but one of the things that we notice as a creator of this technology, partnerships today, they can't be run on spreadsheets. That you talked about it earlier, to a vendor and a partner and a reseller just throwing money at something. Talk about the value of being able to measure, automate, apply best practices, and how really the science of partnering today has been kicked up a notch.
I think that's such an important point, TC, because if you look at other functions in an organization, whether it's the finance function, the HR function, the sales function, they are all automated. They've been automated for years and years. Now, when you look at partnerships, we've automated around the edges. I'll just call it that. There hasn't been a real great opportunity, as there has been for the last couple of years, to really report up into the C-suite that development of that partnering organization. When an executive is looking for data, they don't want to scam through 15 different spreadsheets to get that data. When a partnership leader is looking to make quick decisions, they want to have that dashboard handy. So not only do they know who their top 5 partners are, what they're contributing, where their weaknesses, where their strengths are, but they want to know who else I can add to my ecosystem. So the piece that I think is so critically important is that professionalism, that amount of information to both make decisions and report on decisions.
Very good. Now, we're very excited to have Mike on board to participate in this and share his thought leadership. But you're also going to be joining the Impartner Channel Chiefs Advisory Board, and we're very proud to have you on the CCAB. So as someone in a position of thought leadership and influence in the industry, cast your eyes 5 years out. How do you see strategic alliances and organizations across industry developing? Will they become more important? Will they become more codified and more scientifically and data-driven? Or do you think we're still going to be, inching along in terms of trying to make progress in a variety of fronts?
I think we're going to move forward at a very rapid rate. I think as digital transformation takes hold on all organizations and all industries, you're going to find people partnering inside and outside. So everybody's going to become a technology company. We've heard that before. And technology companies are very good at partnering, right? So that's going to accelerate the growth of that partnering. In addition, there's a real push now to take the, shall we say, the burden of partnerships from the old timers like me and move it down to the new generation of folks who are coming into the workforce who have been cut out of that partnership world. Why? Because typically we want a 15 or 20-year veteran handling partnerships. I think organizations have learned that if we don't get these up-and-comers, these people who are ready to drive organizational growth involved in that partnership conundrum, whether that's in strategic partnerships or the channel, we're going to have a problem. So it's time to accelerate that development and get these folks entry points into our world. And if we do that, I think we're going to grow at a very remarkable rate.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. We've been chatting with Mike Leonetti. He is the president of the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals. Mike, good to see you.
Good to see you, TC. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you. And by the way, Mike is also a new member of the Impartner Channel Chiefs Advisory Board. Well, you've been listening to another edition of Lessons from the Edge. I'm your host, TC Doyle. Thanks for tuning in.